So in the previous class, we were discussing about partial differential equations. And why we are discussing about partial differential equations? Because we noted that PDEs are very important for formulating or for modeling different types of thermal and fluid flow problems. Okay. So all the different thermal problems or fluid flow problems are governed by equations which are some sort of PDs. And we have seen some of the basic characteristics of PD, means what is the order of a PD, then what is the principal part of a PD, what are linear and non-linear PDs, what is the advantage of having linear PDs. Then we have moved on to significance of second order PDs, and for second order PDs we have classified the PDs into three types of equations: elliptic equations, parabolic equations, and hyperbolic equations. And this classification we have done only for the second order PDs based on the coefficients of the principal part or the highest order terms. And then we have seen actually why this type of means why this b square minus 4ac, where a, b, and c are the coefficients of the principal part, are important in determining the nature of the PDs. So we have seen that how they govern the whether there are any discontinuities in the highest order term or not, how this is governed by this coefficient a, b, and c. Okay, and based on that we have seen that if there are no discontinuities, okay, so there are no real solutions for any discontinuity. So in that case, we have what is called as elliptic PD. If there is one discontinuity, again for the highest order term, we have one real solution for the discontinuity, and that type of PD is known as parabolic PD. And if there are two different discontinuities, it is known as hyperbolic PD, and we have these discontinuities are known as characteristic lines or characteristics. These are, remember, it is important to note here that these are the discontinuities in the highest order term, not in the variable. Okay. So in case of second order PDs, these are the discontinuities in the second order terms, second order derivatives of the variable. Okay. So for example, d square t dx square or d square t dt square, this type of terms. So this classification is only valid for second order PD that we had discussed. And we have also discussed what is the significance of this finding. Means not only mathematical, we are not only concerned with the mathematical implication. We also want to know what is the physical implication of this, and we have seen what it means. So, what is an elliptic equation? We have seen for an elliptic equation, any disturbance that is introduced in the domain will influence all the other points in the domain instantaneously. And any other, if any disturbance is introduced at any other point in the domain, that will influence this point instantaneously. Okay, so this we had called as, first one we had called as domain of influence. So domain of influence of P was the entire domain, and domain of dependence, the point on which P depend, the area on which P depend, that also was the entire domain in this case for elliptic equation. That also we had discussed. The second type of equation that we had discussed was so the first type of equation was like we had taken the example of steady state 2D heat conduction equation, which is a type of Laplace equation. The second type of equation that we had considered again is from thermal problems, which is the 1D unsteady heat conduction equation. Del T is equal to alpha del square T del x square. And we have seen that based on the coefficients A, B, and C, we can classify this as parabolic equation. Again, this is a second order equation. We have classified it as parabolic equation. But later I have clarified that the entire equation is not parabolic. Okay, although from this simplistic classification it is a parabolic equation. Actually, the equation is parabolic in time, but elliptic in space. It is only the behavior is parabolic in time. So what was parabolic behavior? We have seen that it is like a one-way coordinate system. So any point can influence all the other points that is ahead of this point, but cannot influence any point which is behind this point. Okay, in the time direction. That is also what is our common sense, like what we know from common sense, that time can only influence at any time. We can only influence the future, not the past. And at this point, any change that has occurred is because of some event at the past. So this point can only be changed by something which is before this time. Okay. So the domain of influence for this point is all the area ahead of this point, and the domain of dependence of this point is all the area before this point or below this point. Okay. And in the space direction, the domain of influence and domain of dependence stretches from from one side of the domain to the other side physically. So in the space direction, it is the entire domain, but in the time direction, it is divided into future and past. So it's like a one-way behavior. And so that's why we called it as parabolic in time and elliptic in space. Okay. And we have also called that this type of problems are known as initial boundary value problems. The previous type of problems are known as boundary value problems. These are known as initial boundary value problems. Okay. I had also given another example. It's not there in the notes, but in case if the flow velocity is very large, then also you will have kind of say any change that occurs will only influence the downstream side. It cannot influence the upstream side. Okay. So in that case also the behavior, like in the space direction, it is not guaranteed that it is elliptic behavior. Okay. So like in the space direction, you cannot say that any disturbance will influence all the neighboring points. It may happen that it only influences certain region. Okay. Later we will see that that type of problem is actually hyperbolic problem. And why this is important from CFD point of view, because the solution algorithm we need to develop later on will depend on the nature of the problem. So for elliptic problem, we have to develop an algorithm where the value at each point needs to be calculated based on all the surrounding values. Means if I divide the domain into certain number of grid points, each point has 8 neighbors in 2D. Okay. So all the 8 neighbor values should be taken into account for calculating the value of a certain point. Why? Because the information travels in all directions for elliptic problems. But for this type of problems, parabolic problems, okay, if I divide the domain into a certain number of points here, so the values, the points that are, so the value at this point can only be influenced by the points before this point. It cannot be influenced by the neighbors which are ahead of this. So it cannot be influenced by the neighbors which are ahead of this point. Okay. So we can ignore those points while deriving the solution algorithm. Later we will see that we can just derive the algorithm based on the values along the line or along the previous line. We don't have to take into account anything from the future, because the solution cannot depend on future changes. So this is the physical significance. So we'll go into the third type of third example, which is for the hyperbolic type of equation. Any questions up to this point? No questions. So you have to study before the classes. So otherwise you will not be able to. Although I am giving a quick revision of the previous class material, still it is better to once go through the material before each class so that you can maintain the continuity in the class. Otherwise later it might be difficult. So the third equation that we will take is also a very famous equation. It is known as 1D wave equation, where the equation can be written as del square u del t square is equal to c square del square u del x square, where t is the time, x is the space coordinate along the, say, it's a 1D equation, so space along that one dimensional, say, distance. What is u? U is the, u can be any variation, so it can be the displacement or it can be the pressure fluctuation. Okay, so it is some sort of perturbation or displacement. Okay, so if it is a say pressure wave which is propagating, it can be the pressure fluctuation, or if it is, say, a string which is creating a wave, then it is the point on the string, like the displacement of the string from the mean path, okay, in the y direction. So you know that a string can look like a wave. In for example, although we will not go into non-thermal, non-fluid flow problem, but for example, if this is a wave, so u is this distance for any x. Okay, these distances are u. So u is a function of x and t, because it will not only depend with x, it will also depend with time, because the wave is propagating. Okay, what is c? In this 1D wave equation, what is c?
Sir, wave speed.
It is the speed of the wave, correct? It is the speed of the wave speed. Okay, how fast the wave is propagating. So t is the time, x is the x direction, this direction. U is the displacement or pressure fluctuation or any other variable like which denotes the wave, which signifies the wave. C is the speed of the wave. Okay. So U is a scalar quantity which is a function of time and space. So U can be written as uxt. For example, U can be the pressure in a fluid or the displacement along specific direction of particles of a vibrating solid from their resting position. Okay. So that it can also be the some sort of vibration. So some sort of amplitude, not amplitude. Amplitude is the maximum vibration. So it is the displacement during the vibration. So again, let us consider a case. So we have a 1D flow, and the pressure fluctuation is given. Pressure disturbance is given. Okay. So the equation governs how the pressure waves propagate in all the directions. Okay. So how fast the pressure will propagate in a flow, how fast it will propagate. So not in a flow, say in a fluid. If I have water, how fast the pressure wave will, how fast the pressure waves propagate in water or in air or in any other medium. Anyway, it's not related to CFD, but it's common general knowledge. What is the speed of pressure wave in air? The speed of,
The speed of sound.
it is equal to the speed of sound, right? It's a very common basic knowledge, basic property of any material. So it will depend on the temperature and so for a gas, what will it depend on? Gamma R and T. Okay, temperature and other things. So for fluid, again, it is the speed of sound in the fluid. For solid, it is the speed of sound in the solid. For fluid, it is higher as compared to a gas. For solid, it is even higher. Okay. So pressure waves, basically the speed of sound is nothing but pressure wave, right? Sound is a sort of pressure wave. So the speed of sound is basically the speed of pressure wave. So we are asking the opposite way. Actually, speed of sound is equal to the speed of pressure wave. So sound is nothing but a pressure wave. So anyway, so that this phenomena is governed by this equation that we have denoted here, right? We will keep it open here. So this equation governs this phenomena. C square del square u del x square minus del square u del t square. Okay. So here, unlike the other types of equation, say for example, fluid flow equation or uh, say the heat transfer equation, unsteady equation that we have seen in the previous classes, not for PD, but the general governing equation for flow or thermal problems. The unsteady term has single derivative of time, but for pressure sorry, for wave equation, we have a double derivative with time. Okay, so it's a different nature. So we have a double derivative with time. So in this case, again using our analogy for classification, A is equal to C square, B is equal to 0. So A is this, obviously, B is for the mixed derivative. So here there is no mixed derivative, B is 0, and C is -1. Okay, so we have derived this with small a, small b, and small c. But here I am using capital letters just to distinguish between this small c, which is a different c. This is the speed of sound. Okay, so this c is different from this coefficient c. So anyway, so b square minus 4ac here is 4c square. Right? This c is the small c. Okay, although it looks similar in my writing, but this is the small c. So which is obviously greater than 0. So if this value is greater than 0, we have denoted that this is going to be a hyperbolic equation, right? And it should have two real characteristics. So for this type of equations, we have two real characteristics, and this type of equations are known as hyperbolic equations. So again, the same question comes. It is an hyperbolic equation as per the classification or as per the derivation that we have done. But so what? So what is the physical significance of that? That of the fact that this is an hyperbolic equation, how does it relate, or how does it affect us physically? Okay, that question again remains. So before that, let us try to find the characteristics. So we have said that there are two real characteristics. Let us try to find these characteristics. Okay. So you remember, if you have studied today, we have derived this equation for the characteristic dy dx is equal to minus b plus minus root over b square minus 4ac. So this is not minus b, this is plus b, right? I have denoted that this is incorrectly written. B plus minus b square minus 4ac by 2a. Okay, and this was the equation for the characteristic. Okay, and this is we only have real solutions. We have one real solution if b square minus 4ac is 0, and we have two real solutions if b square minus 4ac is positive, and no real solutions if it is negative. So for this case, hyperbolic equation, because this is positive, we will have two real solutions. So let us try to take a look at what are the real solutions. So dy dx is equal to b plus minus root over b square minus 4ac by 2a. Okay. Again, just for reminding you, this is valid for this form of equation. Auxx plus buxy plus cuyy plus all the other terms which are together written as h is equal to 0. Okay. So for the present case, what is our equation? C square del square u del x square minus del square u del t square equal to 0. So here a is nothing but c square, b is 0, and c is -1. Okay. So you can replace these values here. And what is y? So y is t and x is x. Okay. So dt dx is equal to b plus minus root over b square minus 4ac by 2a, and you can replace. So b is equal to 0. We have seen. So 0 plus minus 0 minus 4 into c square into -1. So plus 4c square. Okay. By 2, a is again c square by 2c square. So simplifying this, we get dt dx is equal to plus minus 1 by c. Or dx dt is equal to plus minus c. Okay. So integrating, we can write this as x is equal to plus minus ct plus c1, where c1 is some constant. It depends on the initial location of the disturbance. Okay. So if the initial location is some at some reference point x equal to 0, we can also write x is equal to ct, one equation, and the other equation x equal to minus ct. If c1 has some positive value, we can write this as c1 plus ct and c1 minus ct. Okay, where c1 is a constant. So these equations, these are equations of lines, right? Straight lines. So these are the equations for the characteristic lines in this case. So we have two straight lines as the characteristic lines for this hyperbolic problem. Let us try to see what it looks like in the solution domain. Okay. let us take a look at the solution domain. So what is the solution domain? Again, it's a 1D problem. So x can go from some value 0 to some another value, say L. So maximum extent of x is L, minimum extent is 0. Again, time can go from 0 to some time t last. Okay, so from 0 to t last. So this is the solution domain. So where the solution domain is a 2D domain, where x goes from 0 to L and time goes from 0 to t last. 2D means in the temporal spatial direction, means spatially it's a single dimension, but because we also have the temporal direction, it becomes a 2D in that sense. Means one dimension is the time dimension, okay, and one dimension is the space dimension. So spatially it's a 1D problem. So anyway, so this equation x is equal to ct plus c1, it will look something like this. Slope is like this positive slope. Okay. And the other equation c1 minus ct will look something like this. Okay. So it means that, so these two lines denote the region within which the domain of influence is actually located. Okay. Why this is the case? Let us try to understand. So if say perturbation is given, okay, what is this difference between this problem and the elliptic problem? Let us try to understand. Say at a certain time, at time t is equal to some value at this point, denoted by the dashed line, we give the perturbation. Okay, means a pressure fluctuation. So now, how fast the pressure fluctuation will propagate in the fluid in both the directions? Say this was the problem, right? So I have given a pressure fluctuation at this point. Okay, this is the point in the x direction. This is our x coordinate. Okay. So for this x coordinate, I have given the pressure fluctuation. This is the time coordinate. This is the x coordinate. So at this point, I have given the, at a certain time, I have given the pressure fluctuation. So how fast this pressure fluctuation, pressure will travel in what directions? Assume that there is no flow. Okay, because this is, so 1D flow is not correct. Okay. Fluid is there, 1D fluid is there. There is no flow. After say certain time, after 1 second, what will be the, how much region will get influenced by the pressure wave?
Sir, plus CT and minus CT on both sides.
So after time t, it will be plus ct and minus ct, right? From this time. So t, where t is from this time, okay, not the total time. So t minus, so say t minus some t reference, okay. So t minus, so plus ct minus t reference minus. So if this is time 0, then it is obviously plus ct and minus ct. So obviously, just ahead of this point, like just after a small time, a small region is only influenced, right? So after just this time, a small region is influenced. But as you go ahead in time, more and more region gets influenced, right? So this is always the region that get influenced by this pressure fluctuation. So this is bounded by the two lines, which denotes, which physically it means that these are the locations up to which the pressure wave has traveled, okay, with the speed of sound, with the speed of movement of the pressure wave. So with speed c, the pressure wave has traveled up to this point in this direction and up to this point. So at any time you can find out how far it has traveled. So with more time, obviously it has traveled far, so we have more area that is covered. Okay, so this is the domain of influence of this region, okay, of this perturbation or disturbance. So it is bounded by these two lines, these two characteristic lines. Okay. So what is the difference between this and the elliptic equation? In elliptic equation, if we give a pressure fluctuation, if we give any fluctuation, perturbation, what will be the difference with this hyperbolic problem? Answers? What is the speed at which the perturbation is moving in an elliptical problem?
So the speed is infinite in elliptical problem and speed is finite in hyperbolic.
Correct. Correct. That is the difference. So speed is infinite. So immediately after even the infinite small time, the entire x direction in the from the negative to the positive, like the entire extent of x direction gets influenced by this perturbation or elliptic problem. Okay. And in this case, the fluctuation only travels with speed c, finite speed c. That's why only a limited area gets influenced. That is the difference, right? This was an elliptic problem, means it is parabolic in time but elliptic in space. So any fluctuation here influences the entire region along the x direction. Okay, it is not bounded by some finite speed, but for this problem, it is bounded by finite speed. Okay, speed of sound. So to summarize, any disturbance change given at point P in space and time can only influence the zone bounded by the characteristic lines above point P. Okay. So for example, if this is the point, here is a point. Okay, so let me just zoom here. I am using a big screen, so you should always look in a laptop, not mobile. So in mobiles you will not be able to see. So this point, can this point be influenced by any fluctuation, pressure fluctuation P at this point P? It cannot be influenced. Okay, why cannot this be influenced? Because the pressure wave has not yet reached this point. Okay, so physically, where is this point? It is at certain distance along x here. So it is at a distance, at this distance away. So when can this point be influenced? Physically, when this point can be influenced in that 1D medium? When the pressure wave has reached that point. So it will get influenced when the pressure wave has reached this point. So at this time, this point will get influenced. Okay. So at this time, so at a future time, this point will get influenced. But before that, this point cannot get influenced. Okay. So at this early time, this point cannot be influenced by any pressure fluctuation that is occurring at this point. So there is a discontinuity across the characters. Discontinuity is second order derivatives. Okay, not in the value of u. Okay. And information from P cannot go beyond the line. For example, consider a 1D cylinder. Again, same example, 1D cylinder filled with fluid, compressible fluid. Okay. Why I have written here compressible fluid? What will happen if this is not a compressible fluid, incompressible fluid? No answers?
So pressure fluctuation cannot be seen.
Cannot be given, right? Pressure fluctuations. No displacement can occur. No displacement of particles can occur in an incompressible fluid. It has to be compressible fluid. All real life fluids are obviously compressible fluids at different, up to different extents, obviously. So air is more compressible, water is less compressible, but still it is compressible. It cannot be a rigid body. Solids are also non-rigid in real life. That's why pressure fluctuations can occur. If solid was rigid, then pressure fluctuation could not have occurred, right? So that actually is an interesting problem, right? Say I have a very long solid rod, okay, very long solid rod or solid wire, okay. Say solid wire is there, very long wire, and or a rod, very long, 1 light year long, and I pull one side of the rod with a certain velocity. When will the other side start moving? Will it start moving instantaneously, even if it is 1 light year away? Then how that information can pass so fast there? Can any information pass faster than the speed of sound? We know that information cannot pass faster than the speed of sound. Sorry, speed of light. No information can pass faster than the speed of light. So then how at what time will the other side start moving? If I have a solid object, if I start pulling one side. Or say consider a fluid flow problem. Okay, same problem in a different, say different different version. So I have a very long pipe, 100-kilometer long, and on one side of the pipe I have a tank, large tank or reservoir, and on the other side I have a tap. So I open the tap. Okay. So at what time will the water start flowing out of the tap, and at what time will the water start flowing from the tank to the pipe? Can anybody tell? I have a very long pipe, 100-kilometer long. I have opened, and it's a frictionless pipe. Okay, so no friction is occurring, very less friction. And now I have opened the tap. At what time will the water start flowing from the tank, and at what time will the water come out of the tap? Answers. Give me some answers.
Sir, length of the pipe divided by root of 2GH.
Just give me a physical, means you don't have to give the numerical answer or equation. Just physically whether it will be instantaneous or after some time, or why. If it is instantaneous, why, or after some time, why.
After some time, sir.
After some time from where? Means the tap, if I open, we have to wait for some time, then only water will start flowing.
No. We'll get water at the end of the pipe after some time, sir. We will get water instantaneously at the entry of pipe, but not at the exit of the pipe.
Not clear to me. Exit is which side? Tap side or tank side? Tap side.
Tap side.
We will just wait for, so it will take long time for us. That is what you are saying, because it will travel with what speed will the information travel? Others can also discuss.
Speed of sound.
Information will travel with the speed of sound. So from which point will the information travel? What has changed? What is the perturbation here? I have opened the tap, right? That is
So,
the change that is occurring. The tap was closed. I have opened the tap. Immediately the water should come out of the tap, because that is where, so tap is open. Why? How can the water stay there? It should come out immediately. So from that point, water will come out immediately. But that information has to travel to the tank with the speed of sound. So it will take some time. Okay, so if it is say 1500 meter per second for speed of sound in water, and I have 150 kilometer pipe, so after 100 seconds, the information will reach the other point, other side in the tank, that the tap is open 150 kilometer away. So at that point, the water will start flowing from there. So intermediately, what will happen? So how can the flow then occur? If the tank water from the tank starts flowing after 100 seconds, but from the tap it has started flowing immediately. How can that happen?
So the water in tank will flow after some time, but the water in pipe will flow immediately.
Correct. That's what I am saying. But how can that happen? That is what I am saying. So if there is no water coming from the tank, how can the water come out from the tap? Anyway, it's not related to CFD, but we have to think critically what is happening. So this has only happening because water is a compressible fluid, so that it can actually change its volume or density, and that information is passing at the speed of sound from one side to the other. So density is not same at both sides of the pressure wave. Okay, because of that variation, water can still come out from one side, although from the other side it has still not started flowing. Okay, so the entire pipe, the water and the entire pipe will not start flowing instantaneously. So the amount of length along the pipe which will get affected will depend on the speed of sound into time. Okay, so with more time, more and more water will start moving in the pipe. This is also same as the other problem that I was saying. I have a rigid rod and I am pulling one end and it is 1 light year long. So that information will pass to the other end. If it is not rigid, it's a real rod, the information will pass to the other end at the speed of sound in that material. So actually, it will take huge amount of time for the other side to start moving. Although the initial side will start moving instantaneously, the other side will start moving after thousands of years. But if it is a rigid rod, rigid rod is not possible in real life. But theoretically, if it is rigid body, then obviously it has to move instantly, the entire rod. Similarly, if this is an incompressible fluid, if water was an incompressible fluid, the entire water should have started moving at that point. But because it's a compressible fluid, it cannot happen. Let us come back to this anyway. So for example, consider a 1D cylinder filled with a compressible. That's why I'm saying compressible fluid, because otherwise there is no meaning of pressure waves. So pressure fluctuation is given at x equal to C1 at time t equal to 0. What will be the location of the pressure waves? So obviously we know that pressure waves travel with the speed of sound c. Okay, so after time t, the pressure wave will be at a distance from this point. So this point is c1, so it will be at a distance of c into t from this point. So its location will be c1 plus ct in this direction. In the other direction, it will be c1 minus ct. Okay, so if we draw this in the time space coordinate system, it looks like this. At at t equal to 0, I have given a fluctuation at x equal to c1. So now the pressure wave is traveling with speed c in both the directions. So at any time t, it has traveled ct in this direction and minus ct in the other direction. So this point at time t is equal to c1 plus ct, and this point is c1 minus ct. These green points. C1 plus Ct and C1 minus Ct. So basically these lines represent C1 plus Ct and this line represents C1 minus Ct. Okay. So, and this is the area which is influenced by the fluctuation at this point. Any point outside this area cannot be influenced by the point here. Okay, it cannot get influenced by the point here. So this is a very important thing and the main distinction between elliptic equation and hyperbolic equation. And at any time t, pressure waves travel at the speed of sound c for a distance ct in both directions. Therefore, position of pressure wave front at time t is C1 plus Ct and C1 minus Ct, which are given by the red lines here. Okay, so this is the domain of influence. So for this type of problems, two initial conditions are required. So we have a second derivative of time. So two initial conditions are required. One condition can be the displacement and another can be the first derivative del u and del t. So one can be the u at t equal to 0 and another can be del u del t at t equal to 0. Okay. So displacement and speed at time t equal to 0 or something like that. Another point is that I will come to this point. The boundary values may not influence the solution depending on space and time. So it will influence the solution at some point, but not at all points, the boundary values. Okay. So why this is the case? Let us look at this diagram, try to understand this diagram, what is happening. So say I have given, so let us try to understand in this so that I can draw also. Let us consider that I have given a fluctuation here, okay, at this point. At time t equal to 0, at some x value, it is some non-zero x value. So its domain of influence goes in this direction as shown by the dashed line and in this direction as shown by this dashed line. Okay. This is the domain of influence for this perturbation. Okay. So in this direction, obviously it reaches the boundary here. So any point, there is no meaning beyond the boundary. So all the points at the boundary also gets influenced after this time. Okay. Before this time, all the points at the boundary point. So there are not all the points. There is a single point at the boundary because it's a 1D problem. The boundary point gets influenced after this time. It does not get influenced before this time. Okay. And in this direction, the length up to which the influence propagates is given by the extent of this line. Okay. So how these lines are defined? Again, from this point, this direction is at minus Ct and this distance is as plus Ct. Okay. So why I have drawn this point? What is the significance of this point? This point is the point so that it just passes through this point P. Okay, it just passes through this point P. So this point is just able to influence this point P. Okay, so what will happen if I have another point here? What will happen? Which color shall we take? Say red color. What will happen if I have another point here? Will this point influence the point P?
No, sir.
It cannot influence, right? What will be influence, domain of influence? In this direction again, parallel to the previous line, minus Ct. And in this direction, somewhat like this, right? I hope this is clear. So in this direction, this line, and in this direction, this line. So this will be the domain of influence. So it does not engulf the point P. So it cannot influence the point P. So which points can influence the point P? Considering this point, with reference to these points, which points can influence the point P? Any point on the left side, can any point influence the point P? Left side of this point. Any point on the left side of this point, can it influence the point P?
No, sir.
It cannot influence. Always this because this is the limiting point at which the line is passing through P. So any point is there on the left side, the line will be on the left side of P. So P will be outside the domain of influence. Okay. Similarly, on the right side, if I consider a point which is the limiting point, for which on the right direction this is the line, okay, and on the left direction this is the line passing through P. This is the domain of influence of this perturbation. So any point on the right of this point, can it influence the point P?
No, sir, it cannot.
It cannot, right? Because it again its domain of influence will just extend like this. So it should be parallel, but anyway you can understand. So from this point onward up to this point, anything which is within this area, that only can influence the point P. Okay. And at any other time, say same exercise we can do. So at any other time, we will see that any point which is bounded by these lines can only influence this point P. Okay. So as we go near point P, this region becomes small. So basically, these are the same characteristic lines. The characteristic line in the other direction, basically. So the region which can influence P is also bounded by the characteristic lines. Okay, below P or before that time. Okay, and so the domain of dependence on, or the domain on which P depends, the domain of dependence also is bounded by the characteristic lines. That is what I'm trying to convey here. So the domain of influence is also bounded by the characteristic lines as shown here, and the domain of dependence is also bounded by the same characteristic lines. Okay, on one side it is the domain of influence ahead of the P, and before P it is the domain of dependence. Any point which is outside cannot influence P. Now we will come to this line. Also, the boundary values may not influence the solution depending on space and time. Can you give an example of this line? So where the boundary value is not able to influence the solution at a particular point and time, at a particular point in space and time, where the boundary condition does not influence the solution at a particular point in space and time. Okay. Previously, we have seen all the points, all the problems like thermal or fluid flow problems, like the parabolic or elliptic problems. Boundary conditions are going to influence the boundary and initial conditions are going to influence the solution. But for this type of equation, wave equation or hyperbolic equation, the boundary conditions may or may not influence the solution. So can please give an example where in this domain where a solution at a particular point is not influenced by the boundary condition, or which boundary condition does not influence the point. This understanding has to be very clear about this physical significance of these problems, because mathematically we can always derive something, but the main problem in mathematical derivation is that when the type of equation or something changes, our derivation may not hold true, because we have derived for a 2D problem, 2D second order problem. So if I have a first order problem, then also we can have hyperbolic or parabolic type of behavior. But the b square minus 4ac, this type of simple trick to calculate or to demarcate the type of equation will not work in that case. But the physical nature will still be there, and that we have to understand based on our physical understanding of the problem, not by just putting the values b square minus 4ac. That's why we are trying to understand these problems physically so much. Without, like, although we have seen that b square minus 4ac is working in this case, I can formulate hundreds of other types of problem where it will not work. But still we will have hyperbolic or parabolic or whatever required behavior. I will simplify the question. Say this is the point in space and time. Okay. So this is the point in space. So say this point is at x equal to c1. And at this point time is t. can this point be influenced by all the bound, like all along which line is the boundary condition for time given, which is the initial condition, and where are the boundary conditions given? So at which point is the initial condition given and at which point is the boundary condition given? What is the meaning of initial condition and what is the meaning of boundary condition? Tanmay, you are there?
Yes, sir.
So which point are the denotes the boundary condition here and which point denotes the initial condition
So
here?
t equal to 0 denotes initial conditions.
So any point along this t equal to 0 line
Yes.
denotes the initial condition, right?
Yes.
And what about the boundary conditions?
X equal to 0 and x equal to L.
Correct, good. So these lines denote the boundary conditions. So this point now, can all the initial condition influence this point?
No, sir.
It correct. So it cannot influence, right? So which initial conditions can influence this point? Only the initial conditions between this point and this point. So between this region. So if we know the initial say pressure fluctuation at this point or whatever the wave displacement. So these points only can influence this point. Any initial condition outside this length, okay, cannot influence this point. What about boundary condition? Can the boundary conditions influence this point?
No, sir.
It cannot influence, right? Because the domain of dependence does not touch any boundary. It cannot influence. But maybe some future point, the boundary conditions will be able to influence. So for example, if I have a point here and its domain of dependence will go like this. Okay, it's not correct, but anyway. So these boundary conditions up to these points and these points will be able to influence this point. Okay. Anything beyond that will not be able to influence, but it can influence. It will depend on the type of the problem. So is this discussion clear? Any questions? If I ask you what is the domain of dependence and what is domain of influence, you should be very clear about what it means physically and what are the domain of dependence and domain of influence of any point or any fluctuation in a problem. And you need not go into the mathematical details. You can understand that physically, like how a change at any point will influence another point. So for a conduction problem, how the change influences another point. For a flow problem, how a point change influences another point. Okay. For a wave problem, how a point changes another point. So based on that, we can understand. Same thing here. Same thing, but in a modified form. If I consider a flow through a 1D nozzle, converging nozzle, okay. So those of you who have studied converging nozzle, for example, in any of the courses, power plant or gas turbine or any courses, you might have studied nozzles, okay. The students who have studied power plant with me have studied nozzles. The MTech students, I don't know, I must have studied somewhere. Anyway, it does not matter, but converging nozzle is a device where flow is accelerated. Speed of the flow is increased from some small velocity to higher velocity, okay, in the subsonic region. So for the supersonic region, we will need a diverging nozzle. So anyway, if I have one side connected to a large reservoir, okay, Pi is equal to P0. By the way, what does it mean that reservoir? Okay, what is its significance? In this type of problems, you will many times notice that we use the word reservoir. Means for this particular problem, say, let me come to this. Okay, Pi of the inlet pressure is some reservoir pressure P0, and at the outlet I have a back pressure, outlet pressure, which I can decrease. Okay, the ambient pressure can be decreased. So initially, if I have the pressure equal to P0 at the outlet, what will be the flow rate? If PB is equal to P0?
0, sir.
0, because there is no pressure difference, no flow can occur. So once I start decreasing the pressure, flow will start, and if I decrease the pressure further, velocity will increase. Ultimately, if you keep on decreasing the pressure, it will reach a point where this point will reach the sonic velocity. Okay, and this condition is known as choked condition. You might have read in fluid mechanics. Anyway, it's not important in our course. But what I am trying to convey is that velocity will keep on increasing, and at some point it will reach the choked condition. Okay, so choked condition means at this point the speed is equal to speed of fluid is equal to speed of sound. So now if I decrease the pressure further, so in a flow, how fast can that information travel in the opposite direction that some change has occurred? How fast some change in pressure has occurred at a point in a fluid, in a static fluid, say some change in pressure has occurred. How fast will that information travel in the static fluid in the opposite direction?
Velocity of sound in that medium, sir.
Speed of sound, right? So now if the fluid itself is moving with the speed of sound at that point, so the speed of the information will travel relative to the fluid at the speed of sound, but the fluid itself is moving forward with the speed of sound. So from a reference point, general reference point outside the frame, what is the speed at which the information is traveling to the backward region? With respect to the fluid, it is traveling at the speed of sound, but the fluid itself is traveling forward at the speed of sound during choked condition. So then at that point, how fast is the information traveling in the actual, like from the inertial reference point? How fast is the information traveling in the backward direction? Static fluid, how fast you have already said, it's the speed of sound. So always with respect to the fluid, the pressure waves move at the speed of sound. But the fluid itself is moving forward with the speed of sound, right? So if I'm standing outside and I see that this fluid is moving forward at the speed of sound, and the pressure wave in the fluid is trying to move backward at the speed of sound relative to the fluid. So from an outside observer, what is the speed of the pressure wave?
Stationary 0.
It is zero. Speed is zero, right? That's why after that point, even if I reduce the pressure, that information cannot pass in the backward direction. So the speed of flow cannot increase any further, right? So I hope this is clear. This is very interesting because it's not related directly to CFD, but many people do not critically think about why this flow has choked. Okay, they just know that okay, at certain pressure the flow will get choked and we will have speed of sound. But why is this happening? Because we have reached a point at which the pressure wave, the information travels in the backward direction at zero speed, means it cannot travel at all in the backward direction. Previously the speed was less, speed of the fluid was less, so the information could travel in the other direction at a speed c minus whatever is the fluid speed, but now it cannot travel at all because here the speed is the speed of sound. So any information that some change is occurring here cannot travel at all in the other direction. So this flow, so no information can travel inside the nozzle, so no speed can increase further. So that's why it is called as choke condition, that we have reached a condition where no change can happen any further. Okay, it's very interesting to know. Anyway, so why am I discussing this? Because it's also related to this type of problem. Okay, so it's a pressure fluctuation. So if the velocity of flow u is less than the speed of sound c, information can go from the outlet to the inlet as speed of pressure waves is c relative to the fluid. So speed of waves is c minus u in the backward direction in an absolute reference frame. If the back pressure is decreased, u increases until u becomes equal to c. At that point, no information about any change in pressure can travel back to the inlet. This is known as choked condition. Okay. Now you understand why this is choked condition, why actual choking occurs. Okay, instead of just trying to memorize. And this is again related to our, so if you're trying to develop an algorithm for trying to understand pressure fluctuations, CFD problems, there are CFD problems which are done even here also in our institute. Like the students who are working with Professor Bhumkar, they work on acoustic waves or movement of pressure waves in fluid. They develop CFD tools for solving those problems. Complicated problems, very complicated problems, tricky to solve. But then this type of nature of the equation needs to be accounted for. Let us take a break here and continue after 5 minutes. So we will continue. Am I still audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and screen is also visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Okay. So let us go to the next example. So just why I showed this previous example, just to show you that this phenomenon of choking in a nozzle is actually in some way related to the hyperbolic nature or the behavior, the physical behavior due to the hyperbolic nature of pressure propagation or wave propagation. Okay. That's why this choking is occurring. If the information could have traveled at infinite speed, this would not have occurred. So another example. So we have seen three basic examples of these three types of equations. Just a couple of more examples I wanted to show that sometimes the nature will depend on some property values or some parameters. Okay, so for the same equation, the nature can change. So one such type of equation is potential flow for a compressible fluid in 2D. Okay, so for a compressible fluid in 2D, the potential flow is governed by the Laplace equation, del square phi equal to 0. Sorry, for an incompressible fluid, it is governed by the Laplace equation, del square phi equal to 0. Where what is phi? So where the velocity is, it can be written in terms of phi as gradient of phi. Okay, so in that form we can write del square phi del x square plus del square phi del y square equal to 0. Okay, or basically del u del x plus del v del y equal to 0. Same thing. So for compressible flow, this equation can be actually modified in this form: 1 minus mx square del square phi del x square. You don't need to worry about how this equation is derived or such. We just want to see the nature of this equation. Okay, 1 minus mx square del square phi del x square plus 1 minus my square del square phi del y square minus 2 mx my del square phi del x del y equal to 0. Okay, where mx and my are the Mach numbers or the component of Mach number along the x and y direction. Okay, so it's a 2D problem. So the component along the x direction and the component along y direction. Okay, so if the Mach number is very small, the equation reduces to the incompressible form equation. Okay, if the Mach number is very small, it is almost approximately equal to the incompressible flow equation. It is only valid when the Mach number becomes larger. Okay, so for flow over thin bodies, so we are just considering a particular case. Okay, we will not consider the general case. We'll consider a particular case where the flow is occurring over a thin body at small angle of attack, means that it is almost aligned with the body. Okay, this equation actually can be simplified using, so again we will not go into the details how it is simplified because that is beyond the scope of this course, but we will just note that it can be simplified by using linearized small perturbation theory, that it can be simplified into this linearized small perturbation potential equation: 1 minus m infinity square del square phi del x square plus del square phi del y square equal to 0, where m infinity is the Mach number. Okay, so basically it's 1 minus Mach number square del square phi del x square plus del square phi del y square equal to 0. Okay, this is the free stream Mach number, means fluid far away from the body. Okay, that's why it is denoted by this infinity sign. So this is only valid for when the flow is almost aligned with the body and flow over a thin body. Okay. So anyway, so this is our equation of concern. We want to see what is the nature of this equation. Okay. So if this is the equation, what is the nature of this equation? Not this general equation. So let us consider this equation. Where is our general form? This is our general form, right? B square. So if your equation is of this form, B square minus 4AC less than 0 is elliptic, 0 equal to parabolic, greater than 0 is hyperbolic. Okay. So let us see for this case. So A is 1 minus m infinity square, B is 0, there is no mixed derivative, and C is equal to 1. Okay. So B square minus 4AC is 0 minus 4 into 1 minus m infinity square into 1. So minus 4 into 1 minus m infinity square. So it depends actually on the Mach number, whether this term is greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0. If the Mach number is equal to 1, then this term 1 minus 1 becomes 0. So B square minus 4AC becomes 0. So this becomes equal to parabolic equation. If the Mach number is less than 1, so this is the term inside the bracket is positive. Somebody's mic is on. Please switch off your mic. So if Mach number is less than 1, this term inside the bracket is positive. 1 minus something less than 1 square. So it is positive. So the overall this term is negative. So this becomes equal to elliptic equation. There are no characteristic lines, and the nature is equal to elliptic equation. So for small velocities, this is elliptic equation. When the velocity becomes equal to speed of sound, this becomes parabolic equation. When the velocity is greater than speed of sound, or Mach number greater than 1, the term inside is negative. So negative, negative, it becomes positive. So B square minus 4AC is positive, and this becomes a hyperbolic equation. So what I'm trying to show here is that the nature of equation itself changes based on the Mach number. So it is elliptic if the Mach number is very less, but if it is greater than 1, this becomes a hyperbolic equation. And we, at least we can guess, or we can, based on our knowledge, that for hyperbolic equation, when this speed is greater than speed of sound, we know that the information or any information cannot travel at the like the information still travel at the speed of sound, right? So that's why only a limited region gets influenced, and what we have discussed just before it. So that hyperbolic nature of flow or hyperbolic nature of behavior comes into picture. Okay. So depending on the value of Mach number, the nature of the equation can change, and as a result, the solution algorithm that we have to develop for this type of flow should depend on the Mach number. So, for example, for hyperbolic equation, the jump or discontinuity across the characteristic line should be captured. Okay, so if there are shocks that are occurring or something like that, that also needs to be captured for supersonic flow, or any discontinuity that is the information, how far the information is traveling, that needs to be captured. Whereas for the elliptic equation, when the Mach number is less than 1, we can develop a different type of algorithm which does not need to capture this type of discontinuity. So this is just an example, just to show you that same equation can have different nature depending on some variable value. Any questions? Let us move on. So till now we have seen when there are two variables, okay, in a second order PDE, if there are two independent variables, how we can calculate the nature of the PDE. So if there are two independent variables, we can write the equation in this form, A del square. So if the independent variables are X and Y, just a second, sorry. Okay, so if the independent variables are X and Y, the equation can be written as A del square U del X square plus B del square U del X del Y plus C del square U del Y square plus H, where H is all the other terms, equal to 0. And then we can use this this method for classification, B square minus 4AC, the value of B square minus, sign of B square minus 4AC gives us the nature of the equation. But what if the number of independent variables is greater than 2? Okay. It's a second order equation, means the derivative is still second order, highest order derivative is still second order, but we have more number of variables, say x, y, z, like a 3D problem, right? Or x, y, z and t, or x1, x2, x3, x4. It can be n number of variables. Okay. Need not be limited to only 3 or 4 variables. So if I have n independent variables, general case with n independent variables, the equation is of this form. Summation of I is equal to 1 to n, summation of j equal to 1 to n, aij del square phi del xi del xj. So basically this term denotes all the possible combination. So if I have 3 independent variables x, y and z, I will have del x del y, del x del z and del y del z. Okay. So similarly, if I have 4 independent variables x, y, z and t, I can have del x del y, del x square, sorry, del x square is also possible, del y square, del z square, del t square, then del x del y, del x del z, del x del t, some things like that, all the possible combinations that are present. Okay, so this is denoted by this term, and this is the coefficient of each of those terms. Okay, aij is general coefficient. So if I have 2 independent variables, I can have 4 possible terms: del square phi del x square, del square phi del x del y, del square phi del y del x. So together we write actually this term del x del y and del y del x, because both can be interchanged, and del square phi del y square. Okay. In case I have 3 independent variables, the number of terms will increase. Okay. All the other terms are not playing a part in determining the nature of equation because they are of lower order. Okay, so they are included here. So in this case, the nature of the equation is determined by the eigenvalues. So nature of the characteristics depend on the eigenvalues of the coefficient matrix A. Coefficient matrix is the matrix which includes all these coefficient aij. Okay. What is the size of this coefficient matrix? What will be the yes?
Number of independent variables.
Number of independent variables. Correct. So n by n in this case, if n is the independent number of independent variables, right? So it's a n by n matrix. Okay. So where each of the rows and like values in each row and column can be determined in terms of these aij's. Okay. So eigenvalue actually definition, if you remember, is determinant of a minus lambda I equal to 0. This will give us the lambdas are the eigenvalues. Okay. So by solving this equation, determinant of a minus lambda I is the identity matrix. By solving this equation, we can find out the eigenvalues. Okay. How many eigenvalues will be there?
Same as number of independent variables.
Correct. And n in this case it is n. Good. So say after finding the eigenvalues, if we find that any of the eigenvalues is equal to 0, any at least one or any one, okay, is equal to 0, then the nature of the equation is going to be parabolic equation. If none of the eigenvalues is equal to 0, none of the lambda values is equal to 0, then there can be two situations. One is that all of them are of the same sign, either all of them are positive or all of them are negative. Okay, so then this nature of the equation is elliptic equation. If at least one lambda is of the opposite sign, at least one of them is of the opposite sign, and none of the lambdas is 0, then it is hyperbolic. Let me repeat again. So if at least 1 0 is there, automatically it becomes equal to parabolic equation. If there is no zeros, then if they are all of the same sign, then it is elliptic. If they are not all of the same sign, then it becomes hyperbolic. Okay, so this is the general form of the This is the general form which gives us the nature of the equation. Still, it is valid for the 2D case. Okay, sorry, second order case, but for n independent variables. Okay, but second order. So let us try to look at an example. Okay, same problem, just that what we had discussed. Questions? Yes.
Yes,
Class?
sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Tell me.
what will happen if any of the eigenvalues is of complex number? Then we cannot distinguish the sign of the complex number.
Correct. I'm not actually sure about that. If it is a complex number, I have to check and get back to you in that case.
Okay.
It's a good question. Whether it will be elliptic or hyperbolic, we have to see. Because just try to check from the equation. We'll try to understand maybe in the next day. But let me just go through this example. This is a good
Okay,
question.
sir.
So let us come back to our case 4 problem. Okay, what was the case 4 problem? This was 1 minus m infinity square del square phi del x square plus del square phi del y square equal to 0. So same equation here. Okay, we had seen that this equation nature, it will depend on m, like the Mach number. Okay, now we will try to use our generalized formulation of the same equation. So we have here I equal to 2 and j equal to 2 because there are only two variables, right? So n is equal to 2, so I goes from 1 to 2 and j goes from 1 to 2. So we can write this equation as a11 del square phi del x square plus a12, like what is the general equation we had just now discussed. This is the equation, right? General equation. Let me just keep this open. So this equation, so a11 del square phi del x square plus a12 del square phi del x del y plus a21 del square phi del y del x plus a22 del square phi del y square plus b equal to 0. So for this, our equation, what are the values? A11 is this value 1 minus m infinity square. There is no mixed derivative term, so a12 is equal to 0. A21 is also equal to 0. And a22 is this term. So means the coefficient of this term which is equal to 1. Okay. So again, let us try to then find the eigenvalues, determinant of a minus lambda I. Okay. So in this case, because a12 and a21 are 0, so we are only left with a11 and a22. a11 minus lambda 0, 0, a22 minus lambda equal to 0, or a11 minus lambda into a22 minus lambda equal to 0. So if you replace a11, you get 1 minus m infinity square minus lambda, and from the second term, a22 is 1 minus a1, so 1 minus lambda equal to 0. So the two roots are lambda is equal to 1 and lambda equal to 1 minus m infinity square. Okay. So now let us again take a look at these three cases. If m infinity is equal to 1, Mach number is 1. So one of the roots become equal to 0. One of the eigenvalues become equal to 0, and so the nature of the equation is parabolic, and that is what we have seen here also. If m infinity is equal to 1, it becomes parabolic. Okay. But now from the general equation, we are seeing that if m infinity is less than 1, both roots are positive. Okay. Both roots are greater than, both lambdas are greater than 0 and positive. So based on our generalized equation, this should be elliptic equation, and that what we have already seen, that this is elliptic equation, right? So it's parabolic. And if m infinity is greater than 1, this lambda becomes less than 0. So we have eigenvalues of the opposite sign. So this should be hyperbolic according to our generalized formulation. So this we have already seen this to be hyperbolic. So we are seeing that same thing is given again, but using this generalized formulation. Okay. So Any questions? You should be able to find for other 2D types of problems also using this type of formulation. Okay. But generally for CFD problems, we generally don't go too much into numerical problems. We are more focused on the theory part and then implementation in the course, what we will discuss in the subsequent classes. But if you want to go into more details, you can go through the maths book. So this idea was to just give you a brief introduction to the relevant parts of PD, which is needed for our understanding of the nature of our fluid flow and thermal problems. Okay. So we'll end this PD discussion with the final example. Okay. And then from the next class, we will go into the actual CFD, which is discretization. So another example, let us consider 1D heat transfer with flow, but slightly modified so that the flow velocity is very high, so that the effect of conduction is almost zero. Okay. Let us assume that conductivity tends to zero. It means that there is no diffusion, no conduction. And there are no source terms also. Okay, there are no source terms also. So in that case, so this is a representation of the flow. Flow is occurring with a velocity u infinity. So if I change anything here, so if the temperature changes at this point, at a certain point, at time t equal to 0, at a subsequent time, which regions will, say after time t, okay, which region will get affected by this change here? So if the entire fluid was at temperature 300 Kelvin initially, and now I have made this point equal to 600 Kelvin. After time t, which region will get affected by this change? If the flow velocity is u infinity.
Region's right side of the point.
The entire region on the right side of that point, or some limited region. So say this is the point. Just
U into T, sir. U into T region.
U into T. So this is the point. Okay. So some point here. Okay. At this point we have given. So after time t, here I have given delta t. So after time delta t, which region? So this entire region. So anything beyond this region will get affected. What I am saying is correct or something is wrong?
The speed multiplied by that time interval we have taken.
So speed multiplied by delta t in this case. So after delta t time, this is the point, speed multiplied by the time. Okay. So now can you say which region will get affected? This region, is it? So at this point, so what I have just said, okay, initially everywhere it was 300 and I have made the temperature here 600 Kelvin. So after this time, delta t time, this point has moved to this point, right? U infinity to delta t. So can you say what is the temperature distribution now? Which points have what temperature? Any point before this point, anyway, it is going to be 300. It cannot be infinite because flow is coming from that point. Okay. What about any point beyond this point? Has it been influenced? Why are you guys silent? Very trivial question. It's not influenced, right? Because the influence has only passed up to this point. What about these points? What is the temperature at these points? Up to this point, from this point.
So between 300 and 600.
Between 300 and 600. Why? Look at the problem again. Okay. Conductivity is 0. So at any point, anything that is happening, so instead of temperature, if it was an ink drop. Okay, I had dropped a drop of ink here. What would have happened if diffusivity was 0? Will the ink spread?
Ink will be advected, sir.
Only advected, because there is no diffusion. So the ink from this point would have traveled to the, means from this point would have traveled to this point. But it
Yes.
will be only located at this point only, right? It will not spread in this line.
Yes,
Like
sir.
the drop will just flow ahead because there is no diffusion. Same thing with temperature. This point will become 600. All the other points are still at 300 because these points are influenced by something which has come from. So only the, so what is the zone of influence? It is not the line. That is what I'm trying to, I was looking whether you understand or not. It is not the entire region. What is the zone of influence then? At this time, what is the zone of influence at this time? It is not the line, it is just this point. Okay. It is just this point. Okay. So after time 2 into delta t, this is the zone of influence. Okay. So actually for this problem, because there is no diffusion, the nature is very slightly different. Okay. So the entire zone of influence is actually just bounded by a single line. Okay. It is not within two lines. It is just along this line. It is not, the information is not spreading because there is no diffusion. It is just getting advected. Okay. So that is the important thing here. So what will be the, then what do you understand about nature? What type of nature will this be?
So parabolic?
Why parabolic?
No, sir, not parabolic.
Why parabolic? So what is parabolic nature? Parabolic in time and so here it is still bounded by characteristic line. Okay. So in parabolic, what we have seen is that there is a characteristic line where one side is bounded, other side is open. Okay, like this kind of situation was there. This side was open, one side was bounded. Here, all the means the entire region is bounded by characteristic line. So it is like a hyperbolic behavior. For hyperbolic behavior, we have seen that this entire region gets bounded. Okay, up to the whatever is the extent. So actually here the behavior is hyperbolic behavior, but how many characteristic lines are there? Why this is hyperbolic behavior? Let me again explain. Because the information is bounded in a small region. It is not spreading over the entire space, okay, with time. So in a parabolic type of problem, what we have seen is that although along the time it is just traveling in one direction, but along the space it was spreading over the entire region. But here along the time, obviously we are going forward in time, but the information is still limited, located to a specific region, which is hyperbolic type of behavior, what we have seen here. That at a certain time, although we are progressing with time, but the region is still limited with a certain region, okay? Not like this. That it is bounded by time, but in the space direction, it is the entire information has passed to the entire region. Okay. Here it is bounded in space also. That's why it is hyperbolic in nature. But how many characteristic lines are there? Because here the information is just bounded by the single line. So there is actually only single characteristic line. Okay. So it doesn't. So what I am trying to show here is that even for hyperbolic equation, there may be a single characteristic line. It need not be two characteristic lines. So in our cases, we have two characteristic lines because we have 2D equation. Let us try to see what type of equation we have here. Okay. So the general energy equation we have studied previously in the first week or second week, I think, I don't remember. Del del T of rho Cpt plus del dot rho u Cpt is equal to del dot k del T plus S, where S is the source term, K is the conductivity, U is the velocity, Cp is the specific heat, rho is the density. So for our problem, K is 0, tends to 0, and source term is 0. So we can remove the right hand side. U is a constant U, so U infinity, and we have a 1D problem. Okay, so all the derivatives can be written in terms of del del x. We can write this as del del T of rho Cpt plus del del x of rho U infinity Cpt, because U is constant, U infinity. Okay. So if you assume that rho and Cp are constant, we can just remove rho and Cp. So we are left with del T plus U infinity del T del x. So it's a first order PD, not a second order PD. And as a result, although it is hyperbolic, it only has a single characteristic line. So that is actually, that's why here. So that's why I was telling beforehand that you cannot say that like whatever we have derived, that is only valid for second order PDs. But for first order PDs, physically we have to understand the behavior. Although the derivations or the type of derivations or classification we have done, the nature or the method of classifying may change, but the physical behavior is still relevant. Okay, and that is what we are seeing here. So we have a hyperbolic, this is actually hyperbolic in nature. Okay, the behavior is hyperbolic in nature. But because it is first order, that's why it has a single characteristic line. So a single characteristic line does not mean that the equation is parabolic. So we can try to find the characteristic for this equation. Okay. So what is the characteristic? Characteristics are the discontinuities in the highest order term, right? Here the highest order terms are the first order terms. So similar to the second order term, if you remember in the previous class we had derived how to find the discontinuities. Same thing we will do. We will try to form a equation and where we will see that, and we will try to find the case where the determinant is equal to 0, for which case there is no solution. Okay, so we will try to formulate an equation for the highest order terms. So for this case, let me keep this open. Okay, this equation del T plus U infinity del T del x equal to 0. This is our equation. Let this be equation 1. So similar to what we have done previously in the previous class for second order PD, we will again do the same thing. So T is a function of time and space, T and small t and x. Okay, so we can write dt as del T dt plus del T del x dx. Okay. Let us consider this as equation 2. So from 1 and 2, equation 1 and 2, this is 1 and this is 2. We can rearrange the terms. So 1 can be written as 1 into del T plus U infinity into del T del x equal to 0. And the second equation can be written as dt into del t plus dx into del t del x equal to d capital T. Okay. So for discontinuity in the first order term, it means that there is no solution for these first order terms. Okay. And when can that happen? We have seen that it will happen when the coefficient here, coefficient matrix has a determinant equal to 0. Because you can, so this is actually of the type A T equal to B. So T is equal to A inverse B. So we cannot find A inverse when this determinant is 0. So this will happen when the determinant is equal to 0. So if we equate the determinant to 0, so 1 into dx minus u infinity into dt equal to 0, or dx dt is equal to u infinity. Okay. So this gives us the equation of the characteristic. Dx dt is equal to u infinity. So basically this is a line, but its slope is u infinity, and that is what we have seen here. Line with a, so actually I have drawn in the opposite direction. The time, so if we draw the time in the vertical direction here, sorry, this is horrible line. So because I am using a mouse here, difficult to draw. If the time is in the vertical direction, this will be the characteristic line, something like this. Okay. So it will have a slope u infinity, and from the part, if this is the point of perturbation, so always the zone of influence will be bounded by this line. What is the area of this zone of influence? Region of influence of any perturbation, what is the area? Domain of influence is the correct one, right? So what is the domain of, what is the area of the domain of influence? Very basic question. And what is the area of the domain of dependence? So for this point, say perturbation is given at this point. Which regions can influence this point? This is the x direction, and in drawing is very difficult here. And this is the t direction. So which region can influence this point? Give me some answers. Physically, you see at this problem. This is my point. Okay. So if this is the point, so 10 seconds back, if a perturbation was given, at what regions will the perturbation, if the perturbations are present, can influence this point? Or at some before and some like before some time, if some perturbation was given, at what location will the perturbation given influence this point? I'm waiting for some answers. Just try to answer. Mayank, whoever, like, yes, Priyal, you're trying to say something.
So domain of influence is the below that point, line below that point.
It's only the line, it's not an area, right?
Yes,
Physically, this point
So-
can be influenced by which point? So say,
So this point is influenced the line below this point.
so that is from this graph, but in this pipe or tube or whatever, which point will influence this point? There is no below, right? Along the, so some point before end or some area before end will influence this point.
This
What is that zone? That is I'm asking. Your answer is correct in this point.
So sir, area will be 0.
Area will be 0. So only a single point can influence this point.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And the location of the single point is what? It will be, say, if the time beforehand is t time. So this point is u infinity into t backward. Okay. So if it is 1 second, like any perturbation given 1 second back has to be at a distance of u infinity into 1 second to influence this point. Any perturbation given a 2 second back has to be at a distance of u infinity into 2 second to influence this point. Any perturbation given at any other point at 2 second will not influence this point. Okay. So always at a particular time, the domain of influence is, or at the location which can influence this point, domain of dependence is just a point. So if you if you put together all the regions which can influence this point over like the entire time duration, it just will give us a line. So area is 0. Similarly, domain of influence, area is 0. Unlike all the equations we have seen previously. Okay. So here, because the entire thing is bounded by a single characteristic line. So these things are what I have just discussed. Again, it is summarized here. We have only a single characteristic. What is the solution behavior? Parabolic, elliptic, or hyperbolic. Let us investigate the behavior and plot the evolution domain of influence in a TX diagram. Okay, same thing, just what I was trying to explain. So say perturbation is given at x equal to x0. Okay, at this point. So the only point that it will influence after time delta t is at a distance of u infinity into t. Okay, from this point. Because there is no spread of information. This information only getting advected with velocity. So the only point after delta t that it will influence is this point. Okay. So we can just mathematically also see that the characteristic is dx dt is equal to u infinity. So x is equal to u infinity t plus c1. Okay. So in this case, c1 is equal to, at time t equal to 0, the location of x is x0. So c1 is equal to x0 basically. So x is equal to u infinity t into x0. This is our characteristic line. So after delta t, we are at this point. After 2 delta t, we are at this point. After 3 delta t, we are at this point. Okay. So all the points which can be influenced by the disturbance at this point are just located at this line. It is not an area. It is just along this line only. Okay. So the disturbance always moves forward with velocity u infinity and is confined to a single point at any time. Okay, as there is no diffusion. So at any time, it's just a single point. So if I draw all the points together for all the time duration, it will give us a line. The location of disturbance at any time is given by x is equal to u infinity t plus x0. So it's a single point, right? This is a single point. If a fixed time is given, this becomes like a single point. It is always at a single point. So that's why I was asking this question, that what will be the temperature? So the temperature distribution everywhere will be 300, except only at a single point of 0 area where it will be 600. And this is happening because there is no conduction. Similarly, if a drop of ink is dropped at this point, the ink will not spread. So that same drop will now be at this point, and after some time it will be at this point. Okay, in this form it will be at this point and at this point like this. So it will go to this point, this point, this point like this. It will just get advected. So therefore, the entire domain of influence of the disturbance is just a single line, not an area. This is hyperbolic type of behavior. Therefore, although the equation is hyperbolic, we only have a single characteristic. It is as it is a first order PD. So we can verify this by converting it to a second order PD. Okay. We'll convert it to a type of second order PD, the type which is a physical meaning, like wave equation, because we know that it's hyperbolic. So what we can do is del t plus u infinity del t del x. This is our equation. we can take a derivative with respect to t and with respect to x. If I take a derivative with respect to t, we get del square t del t square plus u infinity del square t del t del x equal to 0. Similarly, with respect to x, if we take a derivative, we get del square t del x del t plus u infinity del square t del x square equal to 0. So from 1 and 2, you can eliminate the mixed derivative. If you multiply the second equation by u infinity and subtract from the first equation, then this mixed derivative will vanish and you will be left with del square t del t square minus u infinity square del square t del x square. This is like the wave equation, like a physical equation that we have seen, okay, which had the hyperbolic behavior. So we have reduced it to one of the familiar equations for which we know that the behavior is hyperbolic. We have already seen that. So this is exactly same as this equation, right? Just you have taken this to the other side. But in terms of speed of sound, now the speed of propagation is u infinity, okay, which is the speed of the velocity of the fluid. Otherwise, it is similar behavior. So this concludes our PD part. From the next class, we will start with the discretization part. And we'll start with finite difference method for a few classes. Then we will go into the rest of the course will be on finite volume method. Step by step, we will proceed. And that part will be very similar to the CFD course that some of the students have taken in the elective previous year. So for them, it will be just like a revision. More exercise problems will be there. Any questions? So notes are already there. Okay. You should read the notes before the next class. Next class, anyway, we are going to start a new topic. But better to, when a topic is continuing, you should read the notes before each of the classes so that you can understand the discussions. If there are no questions, we'll stop here. Already I've seen that everybody is present. So 21 students are there, all of them are present. So we'll stop the recording and we'll meet on